The Gojo Clan's Limitless technique is one of the most powerful abilities in all of fiction, and Gojo Satoru pushed its potential to the limit with the 6 eyes. But what if Gojo's creativity went even further? In today's video, I'll explore what would happen if Gojo Satoru evolved the Limitless beyond red, blue, and purple to create a whole new catalog, Rainbow. Before we get into the specifics, let's quickly recap what Gojo is working with, because none of this works unless you understand the rules he's bending. Gojo's eyes are the reason any of this is possible. The 6 eyes let him see cursed energy with absurd clarity, and slashes the cost of using his techniques to almost nothing. Most sorcerers spend their whole lives mastering one inherited technique and using it efficiently, but Gojo spends his childhood running the Limitless all day. Limitless itself is the foundation, and is basically a technique that allows Gojo to distort the fabric of space. Infinity is the most basic form of the Limitless, and applies an infinite quotient to the space between Gojo and a target. Anything approaching him technically never arrives, as infinity just keeps dividing the distance between them forever. Based on the fundamental principle of how objects in space move, the Gojo Clan carved out Lapse, Blue. Blue acts like the gravitational pull of mass, dragging a target toward a fixed point with crushing convergence. After fusing out how to use reverse curse technique, Gojo came up with Reversal, Red, which does the opposite of blue. Red explodes space outward with violent divergence. Fuse the two and you get Hollow Purple, an attack that no one aside from Gojo really understands. The deadliest technique in his arsenal, Hollow Purple is a blast of imaginary mass born from convergence and divergence colliding at the same coordinate. But even the pride of the Gojo Clan with this level of innovation was not enough for Sukuna. Under normal circumstances, Gojo might have been able to beat the King of Curses, but Sukuna wasn't fighting Gojo with his own body. In Shinjuku, Gojo had hijacked Megami's body and along with it the Zenin Clan's prized Ten Shadow technique. At one point in time, a Limitless user of the Gojo Clan had fought the head of the Zenin family, and that battle ended with both combatants dying. The reason was Mahoraga, the Shikigami that doesn't lose. Unlike the other Shikigami in the Ten Shadows, Mahoraga doesn't have a defined offensive ability. Mahoraga's technique is adaptation. It studies cursed techniques, and once it locks onto the underlying property of what it just hit, that property stops working. The Jujutsu Kaisen story already shows us the nightmare version of this when Mahoraga adapts to Gojo's domain and Limitless, dismantling the one advantage that made him untouchable. This is why Gojo was destined to lose from the start. He could have defeated Mahoraga in a fair fight, but once you hand Mahoraga's adaptation to a sorcerer of Sukuna's caliber, there's no force on earth that could stop them. Now, preparing a technique like Rainbow can't happen in the heat of battle, so our story actually begins all the way back when Gojo fought against Toji Fushiguro. This was the battle where he learned reverse curse technique and figured out how to heal himself and use red. In canon, Gojo was satisfied with refining these new techniques, but in our storyline, he wonders what else Limitless is capable of. After all, Limitless is a technique that literally manipulates the fabric of space. How come all it can do is push and pull? That single question is the divergence point. Everything downstream of it is Gojo quietly building a weapon his own ancestors never even imagined, because they never needed to. The answer he lands on is rotation, a third primary motion of space twisting around an axis, neither pulling inward nor pushing outward. Yellow alone sounds almost unimpressive next to Hollow Purple, and even until the Shibuya incident, Gojo finds no real reason to experiment further. He uses yellow in combat, but given how much stronger Gojo is compared to everyone else in the Jujutsu world, it feels almost unnecessary. But all of that changes after the prison realm finally cracks open and he realizes he needs to fight Sukuna. In the original story, Gojo's plan was to avoid using Hollow Purple until he had an opportunity to exorcise Mahoraga. But thanks to developing yellow all those years ago, Gojo sees another brutal and simple option. If Mahoraga gradually adapts to phenomena, the simplest solution is to have an overwhelming arsenal of weapons. So Gojo doesn't spend the lead up to December 24th resting. He realizes that if blue and red gave him Hollow Purple, there are two other possibilities that arise from combining yellow with red and blue respectively. Blue plus yellow gives him green, and green might be the single most dangerous color in the whole set, because it doesn't destroy anything. Blue wants to pull a target all the way in to a point, and yellow wants to spin it. Combine them and the targets get caught in a stable path, like a planet orbiting the sun under its gravitational pull. The target is suspended at a fixed distance, circling endlessly with nowhere to go. Imagine using that on Mahoraga itself. We don't even know if Mahoraga is capable of adapting to a non-lethal move like that. Red plus yellow gives him orange, and orange is what happens when you take red's explosive push and tell it to spiral instead of just blast. The result is closer to a drill than a punch. Think about it. A 1,000-year-old warrior can correct for being blown backwards almost instantly. but orange would completely disorient him. It's much easier to land a killing blow on someone whose balance has just been turned into a corkscrew. Purple stays exactly what it was. Blue and red fused into a single point of devastating contradiction. Nothing about the original trump card changes here, but Gojo has many more surprises up his sleeve going into Shinjuku this time around. But the actual trump card is white, which only exists when blue, red, and yellow are held in perfect balance. None of them pulled too far in any single direction. The effect is a state of synchronization which lets Gojo run multiple colors at once without them tearing each other apart inside his own technique. And because nothing this powerful comes free, there's a failure state. Black. Black is what happens when blue, red, and yellow are supposed to balance into white and don't. Instead of synchronizing, the space collapses violently inward on itself. It's a temporary void crushed out of unstable space that can absorb an incoming attack at the cost of being completely unpredictable, even to the person generating it. Now picture this arsenal actually deployed against Sukuna. Mahoraga's wheel sits above Sukuna's head, and every rotation is a death sentence for whatever just hit it. This is the wall that ends Gojo Satoru in canon, because it finally gives Sukuna a framework to bypass infinity without deploying his domain. But what if Mahoraga's wheel never got a clean technique to learn from? The fight opens the way you'd expect, as Gojo fires Hollow Purple at 200% output into Shinjuku, blowing Sukuna's arms clean off. The two test each other, Gojo firing off blue and red, and Gojo unleashing Cleave and Dismantle. Seeing how they're getting nowhere with their basic techniques, the two go for an all-out domain clash, but they're still evenly matched. Sukuna predictably pulls Mahoraga out once his cursed energy reserves are depleted too far for another domain expansion. The wheel starts spinning, and this is the canon death sentence beginning all over again. Except this time, the second Gojo sees that first rotation, he moves to yellow. The wheel doesn't have anything to adapt to yet, because the phenomenon it started studying has already stopped existing. Gojo escalates into green the instant Sukuna tries to reposition for a coordinated attack with Agito and Mahoraga. When Sukuna forces his way out of it through sheer cursed energy and answers with an explosive counter, Gojo doesn't meet it head on. He answers with orange, turning what should be a straightforward exchange of force into a spiral that sends Sukuna's strike corkscrewing offline. For the first time in the entire fight, Sukuna's stance breaks. He's never had to fight using geometry like this before. But Gojo being flashy had one drawback. Mahoraga stopped adapting to his curse techniques and focused purely on bypassing infinity. This approach also costs Gojo, because holding 3 active distortions of space at once, courtesy of white, is not free. Six Eyes lowers the price of everything Gojo does, but even Six Eyes has a floor. Synchronizing blue, red, and yellow simultaneously is not something even Gojo Satoru can manage, and he's spending reserves no Gojo Clan technique was ever designed to spend. Every second Rainbow holds together is a second of white doing the most dangerous job in his entire arsenal without ever throwing a single visible attack. And that's the moment the King of Curses has been waiting for. Sukuna, sensing the seams in whatever Gojo is running, tries to deploy his domain once again. He still hasn't recovered enough for Malevolent Shrine, but at that moment, Mahoraga's wheel turns, and Gojo realizes that the Divine General has finally figured out the answer for infinity. He has one card left for this exact situation, and it's the card he never wants to play. Black. Unbalanced on purpose, space collapses violently inward at the worst possible second, swallowing Mahoraga before his strike can connect. With Sukuna caught off guard, Gojo fires red at maximum output to wipe out Agito. The two Shikigami are wiped out. But what about the world-cutting slash? With everything moving so much faster in this timeline, Sukuna barely has the time to figure it out, and he can't make the binding vow in time as Gojo deals a heavy blow with orange. When the dust settles, Gojo stands above Sukuna as the undisputed strongest sorcerer in history. His authority and Kenjaku's death put an end to the culling game, and Jujutsu Society tries to return to the way it once was, with the Gojo Clan leading the way. If you like this video, check out my channel for more incredible Jujutsu Kaisen fan theories and what ifs.